I am very delighted to have Heidi here. Hooray, hello. For this episode of Collective Conversations. And and we're talking about anxiety and anxiety-based school avoidance, which before we came on, well, as I knew we were going to be talking about this, I do like things to just be pretty free flow. However, I thought I'd Google it and see what it says.
Ooh,
I
I'm
know,
interested.
I
I'm
know.
interested.
So the thing that came up the top, which I thought it's actually an AI overview, I realise, of the searches that come up when the things that come up in the top of Google. And it says anxiety-based school avoidance, ABSA, describes when a child can't attend school due to intense anxiety, fear, or emotional distress, not deliberate defiance, often causing physical symptoms, tummy aches, headaches, and severe reactions to the idea of school. It's a spectrum from struggling with regular attendance to total absence, and is linked to mental health issues like anxiety disorders, with the older term school refusal being replaced to remove blame and highlight the underlying can't rather than won't. Support involves identifying push-pull factors, working with schools and GPs, and seeking professional help like CAMS to address triggers, which can range from social fears to academic pressure, often requiring compassionate, tailored strategies. So,
Ooh,
I think that's quite a good description, really. What do you
let's have
think?
it. Yeah. No, yeah.
It's
And
it,
that would reflect what I hear about people's experiences and the things people tell me about what that looks like, and
yeah.
usually what avenues they've pursued before they get to the point where they deregister and do not continue to
Mm,
find ways for their child to go back to school.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's worth. One of the things it mentioned in that statement was the school refusal thing. And so, yeah, I really recognise that being old language, but for a lot of people, it might be current language, you know.
Yes, and it does it kind of says what's happening
Mm.
in one way, in one sense. There is a practical refusal to go to school.
That is true. That is true, isn't it? It kind of does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, it's problematic, but
Yeah, yeah. Because the downside to that, obviously, is that where with somebody refusing to do something, it makes them sound like they're being belligerent and defiant and deliberately obstructive, and could make a different choice, but they're choosing to
yeah,
refuse.
yeah,
Whereas, so that doesn't really reflect the truth of people's situations, which is their child is really struggling
yeah,
and like can barely get out of bed, or is like feeling really ill, or having very real physical symptoms and reactions to um, even the thought of going somewhere where they don't feel safe, or they feel um, yeah, they've got strong feelings about. Yeah.
yes, and it's a presentation.
Mhm.
The behaviours are,
Mhm.
are like we often say. Behaviour is trying to tell us something.
Yes.
It's not the
Exactly.
behaviour that needs kind of correcting in and of
Mm.
itself. It's kind of understanding what's going on, what's the message this is giving us. So it kind of then leads to maybe the anxiety, maybe there's something going on they're not telling you about, which is causing the anxiety. So that can often be like bullying, maybe, for example,
Mhm.
could be any number of things. But it's kind of trying to get behind that
Yeah.
story of refusal, and trying to understand what is happening for the child.
Yes. It's kind of, yeah, it comes down to empathy, really, doesn't it? And trying to understand, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that telling us? Which is, with what we both do, that is the basis of gentle parenting and conscious parenting. It's like
Yeah.
understanding what's going on for the other person, and the other person being your child,
Yeah.
or
And
doing your best
because,
to.
it's even kind of, it's kind of revolutionary to even kind of say, to value your child's experience, to listen to what is happening for them,
Yes.
and regard it and take it on board and
Yeah.
listen, and to understand things from their perspective. That's it's not it's not always what we've been taught to do as parents.
No,
You
it
know?
isn't. It isn't what we've been taught to do. It's fairly new, really, and which always surprises me how new that is, really. And of course, when I was a kid, I did not feel listened to or like I had a say in anything. And, that was only like 20 years ago. She says, not at all. So 70s, 80s, for all those people who are confused, how that could possibly be so. Yeah, it's like 70s and 80s. Um, but yeah, it's all actually relatively recent, really, given that these ideas have been around for a long time, since the 70s and 80s, actually, but actually
I know
them
you say
becoming.
that. I'm gonna like. I think historically, like if we go further back, I think
Yeah.
historically there is an argument that says some cultures have been very good at incorporating their children's
mm, yeah.
ways, emotions, development,
Yeah.
into their experience, and
Hmm.
um, recognizing, recognizing those things, having empathy for those things,
Hmm.
nurturing those things. I
Mm.
don't think historically it's unheard of. I think in our culture for a long time it's
Yeah.
been dormant, which is
Yes.
probably a polite word. Um, and like you say, like there has been undercurrents maybe for decades.
Yeah.
But I think it's maybe coming into its own more now, like emerging as a
Yeah.
better known
I mean, there's
way of
definitely
approaching.
a lot more about, um like, just looking in at those parenting approaches, for instance, and the amount of people who are supporting or doing stuff around parenting, like, has increased massively. Even in the last 5 years, actually, I notice, you know.
Yes, yeah.
So there's, yeah, yeah. I
But I
mean,
think that's a really key starting point when we're talking about emotional based school avoidance,
mm-hmm.
that it's okay to listen to your child. It's
Yeah.
okay for your focus to be on what does my child need? What is my child's experience?
Mm-hmm.
How can I support their mental health and well-being? And that your focus and your aim doesn't have to be, I need to get this child to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your primary responsibility can be like focusing on what your child needs.
Yes. And that, I think, can often be at odds with educational establishments,
Yep, absolutely.
because I think this is important for parents to realise that their focus might be around attendance, for instance, right? And getting your child to school. And I think there is in our culture a baseline of assumption that school is the best place for children to learn. So thinking about what the baseline is for the majority of people, and the bias we can have as parents to that as well, because that's something I've noticed, because I've been on a home education journey for 2 years now. So we're still fairly new to it all, really. But when we first had a conversation, we were really, really new. We just started. I know it was a year ago, so we were a year in. But
Is
but
it
I know.
worth me saying that I haven't introduced myself?
Oh yes, we
Just for
should
people who are
introduce you.
listening.
I'm
They're
assuming
probably
everybody
going,
knows who Heidi is, because
who is she?
I know exactly who you are, because I think you're amazing, and I'm like, don't you know who Heidi is? So Heidi, please introduce
I'm
yourself.
just thinking this might be the point, because we're talking about home educating, and so in a previous iteration of me, I was a teacher. So
Yes.
that's, that is relevant to our conversation. I am a former teacher. I taught in primary school, specifically early years, for 11 or 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to sending my own children to school, I decided not to do that for various reasons, largely based on my experience in schools.
Mm-hmm.
So my children, I have 4 children, and they have never been to school. And they
Wow.
are currently aged 18, 17, 14, and 11. And they also, importantly, kind of from my perspective on learning and things, have never done what we might call school at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they are completely self-directed and unschooled. So they, yeah, do things that make them happy. That's the
Mm.
best way to describe it. Um, which people have lots of questions about.
Yes, I'm sure they
Obviously,
do.
they do. Um, anyway, but that's me, and I think it's important, really, this idea about establishing that education can happen without school,
Yes.
learning can happen without school.
Aha.
It's not a prerequisite to developing, growing, achieving,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
academics, any of that.
Yeah.
And that is often at odds with what school is telling
Yeah.
telling you. The
Yes.
importance of being in school. You mentioned attendance. I've been in schools um, where they have posters on the wall which kind of say, if you're 2 minutes late in the morning, so many times over a term, that adds up to 30 minutes. And if you do that over the year, it adds up. And that's hours and hours of learning time. Like, the important thing is that you're there,
Yes.
without considering the way in which you are there, like
Mm-hmm.
how you feel about being there,
Mm-hmm.
or what you're bringing with you that day, what else is on your mind. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. You have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So this real focus on attendance, which is often, one of the things that schools are also juggling, because
Yes.
it comes with all sorts of other things. For schools and schools management, it comes with pressure, and it comes with fines, and it comes with
Mm-hmm.
data, and so schools are carrying that
Yes. Yeah.
weight and
Uh,
expectation, which then feeds down to your child.
yeah, and that kind of pressure, and obviously the government's um uh ideas for improving education is to fine parents, for their children not attending school enough. So, this kind of punitive approach is just, it just seems absolutely crazy to me, and it is, because it's not actually helping anybody,
No.
and making it actually worse for everyone, and adding all this stress to teachers and parents and kids and everyone. So yeah. So so we've talked a bit about what anxiety-based school avoidance is, and we will dive a little bit more into that. I did actually ask for if anybody had any questions, and I probably didn't give people enough time for that because they only had today, and so most people probably haven't even seen it yet. But I do have a couple of questions, so I'm going to actually bring those, because I think one is I'll start with the teacher first, or the ex-teachers, which wasn't really a question. It was, I don't have any specific questions, but I'm so interested in this conversation to see how it can support my well-being work with students at an alternative provision. Many of them are anxious and have trauma from their experiences in the education system. So this person is goes into school, is an ex-teacher, and has done a lot of work with creating well-being resources, and takes those into schools to support the pupils and to support the teachers and help improve the environment. So I'm curious, because obviously you have a similar background in being an ex-teacher as well, and I'm curious about what because you have a lot of experience as well supporting parents who've decided to bring their children out of school. What's your take on the question that's behind that statement, which is, how do you support children with their anxiety and trauma in a school environment or an alternative provision environment? So I'm curious what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I think it really comes back to working with the child and finding what works for them. So because it's going to depend on what their particular anxiety is about. It could be a specific teacher, it could be that the classroom is too loud, it could be the transitions, it could be the seat or the seating, it could be anything. So working with the child specifically is going to be really important. But then when you've got things in place that are supporting that child, one of the stories I hear over and over again is when things are in place and things are going really well, the next step always seems to be, let's reduce the aids they've got. Let's reduce
take it away.
You're doing really well. Look how well you're doing. Let's not give you that support anymore. Off you go. And it's like, no, they're doing really well
because of the support.
Those things are in place.
Yes.
So kind of to just be really mindful that things are going really well because of all the support that you've gone to the effort of putting in place, and to not withdraw that.
As you're saying that,
becomes anxiety inducing.
Yeah,
you're going to take away this cushion, or you're going to take away the extra time I need to transition, or you're going to take away my the permission I have to go to a quiet space when I need it, or the ear defenders I'm wearing,
or the person that's there to support me in class, I'm going to take them away.
And that then becomes anxiety inducing in and of itself. So I think the key is really to remember that when you've listened to the child and you put the things in place that are going well, things are going well because of the adaptations that are being made. Don't go, yay, they're doing great, they don't need those anymore. And because I hear that a lot, and it it's hard. It
sounds so obvious when you say that there now, right? And as soon as you were saying it, I just thought, I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what you're going to say. You're doing well, so we're going to take it away. This is like, because, when you hear it out loud like that, it makes no sense. It makes no sense to take away the thing that's helping. But yeah, I can see that that's exactly what happens, Yeah. So I have another question, which I think is really in your wheelhouse as well, from a group that I'm in, which is, one of my sons has school-based anxiety. We've just moved him to a much more nurturing, gentle and understanding school, and he's definitely doing better than he was at his previous school, but still struggles. My main question is, do I keep pushing him to go to school? Is it the best place for him? It seems the majority of his anxiety is to do with school, and if he didn't go, if he was home educated, he might not have very much anxiety anymore. You probably hear this a fair amount.
Yes. Most of the questions I get asked have the following answer. It's only 2 words. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. And sometimes the only way you will know the answer to that question is to give it a go, to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often we think, I know we have to be mindful that if we home educate and if we deregister, it doesn't guarantee that there will be a place if we need to re-register.
Aha,
It
yeah.
doesn't guarantee there'll be a place in that school again. So that is a consideration.
I think thank you for pointing that out, because that is important, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have that awareness. Yeah, so like you say, that is an important consideration. And there isn't a one size fits all kind of solution, because,
No, there
I
isn't.
was in a home ed group, and a mom was like, I really would, like, her son's miserable at school and she would love to take him out. And she feels like she can't because she's a single mom and she has to work, and, you know, um, and it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And
There's
it,
always loads of different things that different considerations for different families. But the other thing is, like even if you decide to home educate, that doesn't have to be forever as well. So in
yeah,
the case of this lady that you're talking about here, she could deregister, home educate, and if it turns out that that reduces her child's anxiety and things are going really well, then you carry on doing it. But if it turns out that that's not the case, then you can always go,
yeah,
go back to school. I mean, when we first started out, we took it a term at a time. We always said we were quite, still operating in terms at that point, school
yes,
terms.
yes. I,
um,
I very much do. Like, all my life, I've thought in terms. So,
yeah.
I still do.
And so we were kind of like, okay, well, let's do this and we'll review it. We'll just check in at the end of a term and see how we're doing.
Hmm.
And then, and we were doing okay. So okay, we'll check in at the end of next term. And at some point we stopped checking in. It just became, this is
Hmm.
working and we'll keep
Hmm.
doing it. And if it ever turns out that it's not, or something's not quite right, um, then we'll chat about it then.
Yeah,
And no decision has to be forever.
yeah, yeah. And,
Mm.
it's interesting with it's working. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other
How
question, because
how
I
do
said
you
it really
know?
tentatively as well, because I was like, oh, if you only give it a week, well,
Yeah,
because
it
I
takes a long
know,
time for it to feel like it's working. So,
yeah,
for
to feel
us,
comfortable, to feel, yeah, like I don't know how to define it's working, and there might
yeah,
be a lot of things where you think, my life isn't sunshine and rainbows
yeah,
and
yeah,
unicorns, but we've been doing it for 14 years.
Yeah.
It's not to say things haven't happened that have been like a bit bumpy, or
Yeah.
we haven't had the occasional wobble when, at certain points.
Yeah.
Um, but we have got more confident with what we're doing and more comfortable and be,
Yeah.
things. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's too hard to define that it's not it's not
Yeah.
work.
Because I think, coming back to the anxiety bit, and I'm going to link it to burnout. So I think often children can be in a place of burnout as well by the time they come out of school. Now, if they're in that place where they're exhausted, I mean, and I've seen this with quite a few children and a few families where, like, it looks like chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
You know, it looks just like chronic fatigue, and um, so there's like, so if you take your child out and they're in this burnout place, it might not look like it's working because
Absolutely.
they've got, they're not functioning, and it might look like, they're going backwards almost, because
Yeah.
they can't even get out of bed, or they can't
Yeah. Because I was
do
going to say,
things,
along with
and
that chronic fatigue, it looks like chronic fatigue. It also can look really tough mentally, like as a
yeah,
mental, um, mental health.
yeah,
It's not pleasant to watch your child
it's
in that place. And the families that I work with, quite often when I say it doesn't might not look like it's not working, it's so hard to define that, because when you're in burnout, or even when you're making the transition from this is what education looks like to all the possibilities, and it could look like something completely different that you
mhm,
have never experienced before or considered as education before, that transition can take a year, it can take 2 years, it can
mhm,
take 3 years. And so to
mhm.
kind of base what's working after a couple of months on when you know that it can take children a while to really fully recover from their experience of school, um,
Yes, yeah,
it's hard to define.
it is really hard to
When you
define.
hold that knowledge in mind, that actually it can take a really long time
Yeah,
for
but
that
I
to
think it's
happen.
really important for people to know that, because similarly with when our daughter came out of school, um, initially we were like, oh, well, maybe it just be a term, or maybe 2 terms, and maybe then, because ours was in January, maybe 2 terms, and then she might go back after the summer or something, just have a break. And then the further we got into that, the more we realized, oh, this is going to take way longer than we had thought or we had anticipated. So, and I think as parents, um, there's just a lot of unlearning that happens. It's actually quite a thing, really. The journey you go on as a parent with your all the stuff that you brought with you from however many years you've been on this planet, um, of what you think learning has to be, so, or has to look like. And so that is just like, whoa.
I'm really, you talked about, I'm really interested in maybe just bringing up this idea that they can also go backwards. It looks like they're going backwards.
Yes,
And that
yes.
doesn't just mean academically backwards.
Uh-huh.
Because when children are in school and they're trying so hard to maybe go back to, and they might be failing, that emotional based school um avoidance,
Yeah.
it might be giving them a stomach ache and they might cry and they don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, to go backwards, to actually release all of that and to know that they don't have to try anymore. They don't
Mm.
have to, they don't have to fight. No one's going to ask them to go back to school. No one's going to try and get them to go in with a colouring sheet, or sit in the,
Mhm.
come in 5 minutes early before everybody else, or whatever it is that they're offering. No one's going to be going through that process. And then to have that release from that, that's when it looks like it's going backwards, because to release all of that and the relief that maybe comes with that as well, um,
Mm.
gives this impression that they're going backwards. But actually, it's really, really essential. It's really
Yeah,
essential that they go through this period of being supported in a supported, emotionally supported place, that can happen,
yeah,
so that they can heal and
yeah,
repair from that experience before moving into something
yeah,
new.
yeah, yeah. And, you know, it often, like, I share a structure with people that's very simple. When it with like a parenting skills kind of structure. And I often say to people, it's kind of like slowing down to speed up. Like you have to let go. You have to, and then once you stop trying to force things and stuff, and you allow, then what happens is, um, it can kind of naturally, life can naturally be, and learning can naturally be. And I've got a little bit of a story that I think will be, um that I didn't expect to be able be but I kind of feel like it would be nice to share, is that I think there can be anxiety for parents over, well, what's the future going to look like for my child if they miss some school, or if they come out of school, or, and we're like, we don't know. We actually don't know. Um, but it's like getting to that place where it feels like it'll be okay though. It will
Yeah.
be okay. And our daughter came out of school, and when she did come to this place where she wanted to do things, she enjoyed cooking, and she started doing some cooking. And so the first kind of home ed thing we sort of did was, she actually did a cookery course, which was incredibly challenging, actually, really, really challenging. Um, but out of that, she's actually ended up with a qualification, and she's 12, and it's a qualification you wouldn't do until you're 15, 16. Um, Now, the aim wasn't to do the qualification. The aim wasn't like, but this is what I'm saying, this slowing down to speed up, that can happen. And it wasn't that we were looking for her to get a qualification or anything. It just, that happened. And by her following her interests, and I'm just like, wow, that's actually amazing. What what happened, really?
Yeah, what can unfold.
Yeah,
I
what can
love this
unfold?
idea of slowing down. Like, I talk a lot actually about slowing down. In fact, my first ever, I think my first ever YouTube video or something is about slowing down. I did that about 5 years
Mm.
ago now, maybe six actually. We're in 2026 now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, about 6 years ago. And I talk a lot about slowing down, and even since then we've slowed down even more. But I
Mm.
think we are culturally wired to keep going, to keep going, to keep going. There's always that we
And
always
to
have to be
keep up.
doing things. We always have to keep up. Even as adults,
Mm.
we always have to be seen to kind of be busy and to be doing. And what are we doing? And what are we doing? And what are we doing? And actually, to slow down can feel like we're doing nothing. And I think that quite
Mm.
often it creates unease for parents.
Yeah.
And a lot of our children need us to slow down.
Mm.
And what we're doing instead is providing and creating this space, like a beautiful, nurturing, compassionate, safe
Mm.
space where our child can um, express all of their emotions, rest when they need to, kind
Mm.
of be in burnout without being required to do their homework, or to do this activity, or to
Mm.
go to this place, and to provide them with this space where it's okay for them to be. I think you
Yes.
mentioned about being,
Yeah.
for them
Yeah.
to be in the way they need to be right now. But it creates this dis-ease for parents,
Yeah.
because we want to be doing something and we want to help them and we want to make them better.
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah.
give them medicine, or we want to send them to therapy. And I'm not saying therapy isn't always appropriate, but we want to be doing all the time. And I think it sometimes helps to remember that what we are doing is really important and really valuable. Being there, being a safe person for them, creating little dens for them, bringing them their favorite food, watching their favorite shows, um, allowing them to cry when they want to cry and talk when they want to talk. Um, you know, to create this environment, which is a lot related to how we help them to learn things outside of school as
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
providing them in this environment in which they can um, ask their own questions, pursue their own interests, find what's joyful for them, or what brings them a sense of calm and satisfaction, and and providing this environment for that to be possible in. But the future is always unknown. Even if your kid's in school,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not guaranteed. It's not
No.
guaranteed they're going to get their exams. And if it is, and if they do get exams, it's not guaranteed that they're going to get a great job, or at
No.
some point they're going to make decisions for themselves, and it might not look how you envisaged it.
Yes.
It would look.
Exactly.
Nothing
Exactly.
is we have this, I think it's a false sense of security around the education system, and the way it's mapped out before us and before our children. It gives
Yeah.
us a false sense of security, but it's not it's not always known.
Yeah. No, it definitely isn't, is it? So, it feels like we should wrap up this conversation. And because we've been talking longer than I said, I'm really sorry about that.
That's all right. Probably
But
mostly me.
but I think it's been a really interesting conversation about, whenever I speak to you, I always feel like it's such a great reminder, because it is about simplicity, and this sense of simplicity and being, and actually remembering what's important in life, which is actually the being, us, of being. We're human beings, not human doings. We are, that aspect. And it's something I'm learning, actually, because I think this programming to do and achieve and all of that, it's so prevalent, it's so everywhere, that I think it's challenging. And I think when, the gift of a child that experiences anxiety and feels like they can't continue, actually, the gift of that is it forces you to make some fundamental shifts and fundamental changes. And I think that is incredibly powerful for our personal development, our development as a family, and that kind of family legacy that you have, that you're passing on to your children. But also I think that ripples out into society.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be, anxiety in and of itself isn't only linked to school. It is
Yes.
very possible for your child to come out of school and their
Mm.
school-based anxiety to be, reduced, but that doesn't mean they won't ever be anxious about anything.
Yes.
You know that
And I I
it
think a lot.
just means that we have more space and time to respond, I
Mm,
think, to that,
yes.
and
Yeah.
to be compassionate, because we aren't carrying the expectation of having to go to school and having to do homework and having to study this or
Yeah.
attend that. And we have more, I'm going to use the word freedom, to navigate that,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
Because I love that you've mentioned that because the anxiety might not go away, and your child might be anxious about being in a group environment, for instance, which they were in school all the time, and there are other group environments in life, so
Yeah.
but that, like you say, that freedom to support them without this added external pressure, um yeah, and I suppose to navigate those things that cause anxious feelings, have more agency, I suppose, around the time scale and how you navigate that, and how you, and your child gets to have more autonomy about how they choose to, because they will choose, they want to do things, they want to be out there. So if, for instance, it's anxiety around groups, they will want to be in a group setting at some point, and it gives you that opportunity to then support them with that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Amazing.
Absolutely. It
Well,
would be remiss of me before we
yes.
say goodbye to
Hmm.
not mention that my book is being published in February.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness, your book is coming out very
I
soon.
know.
Exciting.
So on February the 19th, my book will be available for sale. It's called School Isn't for Everyone and What You Can Do Instead.
I
And it
love that.
mentions quite a few of the things we've talked about this evening. Particularly
Brilliant.
of interest, probably the like what it's like when children first come out of school, and
Yes.
you know, the how to navigate what might feel like a beautiful and exciting time, but actually turns out to be quite bumpy. And
Yeah.
the going backwards, I mentioned that in the book.
Yeah.
But it's also a very practical book. So there's kind of like little prompts just to help parents stop and maybe have a think about what's happening and how they feel about it.
Mm.
Um, and some practical ways that you can support your child, and then it continues into um, what happens what happens next as life unfolds and beautiful things emerge as we relearn what learning can look like.
It sounds fabulous. I can't wait to get a copy of it. Sounds great.
You
Yeah, amazing. And I know you are obviously inside the Parent Support Collective as well, and we'll talk more about maybe there might be something that we can do in there as well, as some kind of guest session in there would be really lovely. But this will be inside there. It will be on Spotify, it'll be on YouTube and all the places as well. And yeah, I'm excited for your book. And if anybody's listening to this and they want to talk about what's going on for your family, do join us inside the collective, and we can speak to you in there. And and this book sounds amazing. I will definitely be getting a copy myself. So yeah. So thank you so much, Heidi, for
oh,
coming
thank
on
you for having
tonight.
me.
It's been so
It's such a
great.
it's so lovely to speak to you. I love speaking to you. And you, if people are interested, you have also guested on my podcast, which is
Yes.
All in Conversations. Um,
Yes.
and so you can go and check out the conversation
Yes.
with me and Sarah there.
And there's
Yeah,
lots
it's
of other
always
great
good.
ones on there. I've listened to quite a few of your episodes. They're great. They're great. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.